I'll bring him in here if he's ready to come in, because we will get his opinion on this as well. Richard, welcome, first of all. It's always good to see you, my friend.
David, do you know what that was like? Do you know the TV shows like Ant and Dec? And they have the little family in the background waving. That's what I was like. I was like the little family waving at the TV on Ant and Dec. You know what I mean? So, anyway, hey, Richard, little amuses the innocent.
What do you make of today's events with? Oh, this is so much.
Well, I just can't wait for David Lammy to be Prime Minister. I think it's going to be wonderful. It's going to be something to behold. We will be. David. I always say that David Lammy reminds me kind of what a love child between Idi Amin and what's the woman that Diane Abacus. Idi Amin and Diane Abacus. That's what you would get if you bred Idi Amin and Diane Abacus. You would get David Lammy. And I'm not saying that's what happened. I wouldn't want to cast aspersions on his parenthood, but there's something there between Diane Abacus and Idi Amin, and you get a David Lammy.
But he will become. I mean, well, here's the first question for you. You saw, Richard, that Anas Sarwar, who's the leader of Scottish Labour, he's come out and said you have to go. And I understand that the leader of Welsh Labour is going to say the same thing. And what Stormer did, which amused me enormously, between 2:30 and 3:30, they were all told, all the people in the cabinet, you now put out the tweet saying you support us. And so he can't get away with it. Richard, it's not going to work, is it?
Well, you know why Anna Samwar said that Keir Starmer has to go? Because he's white. He's white. He's white. He's white. They're all white. They're all white. They all have to. They're not like me. They're not Pakistani, Scottish. They're white, and they have to go. Yeah. So that's why Anna Samwar said that. Anna Samwar, too white for me. He's got to go. Simple as that. He's after Banana Mahmood. You see, he wants Banana Mahmood to be the first Muslim prime minister.
But I don't think that's plausible. I don't think she has any chance. I don't. Well, I don't know. Richard could be wrong.
Listen, who'd have thought Keir Starmer would end up prime minister, for goodness sake?
But here's the thing about it. Like, I agree. Well, Starmer back in the summer of 2024, and you looked at. I remember, Richard, looking at the newly elected Labour government, and you had Starmer, and he was a former director of public prosecutions, so he is able to carry himself till a degree. But then, Richard, you look around him, and it's just a bleep show, and that was in the summer of 24. Now we're at the point where he is going to go, and it could be anyone replaces him. I mean, Angela Rayner getting her hair done. Did you see her TikTok getting her hair done?
The ginger growler. I mean, come on. I mean, it's frightening, but it's frightening, but it's funny. I mean, you've got to laugh because you cry otherwise when you see the lunatics that are going to be running our country. They have taken over the asylum, but I think there's a lot deeper point here, David, and people don't realise how influential David Mandelson was in old Labour. We remember in Northern Ireland. Remember he was over here.
Peter Mandelson. You said David Mandelson.
Sorry, Peter Mandelson. Yeah, Peter Mandelson. Sorry, yeah.
With him. I'm not in the Epstein file.
No. Peter Mandelson. What did I say? David Mandelson. Did I say David Mandelson?
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
You see, that's what happens when you do two live streams back to back. I'm just off an hour and 15 minutes with Paul Thorpe. Yeah. It's a good. I'm amazed I haven't come on and called you Paul yet. Yeah. Give it time as the show goes on. But yeah, let's just call him Mandy. That song. Just think of the Barry Manilow song about Mandy, and we get Peter Mandelson. But he was the architect of everything that New Labour did. He was if you want to say, the brains behind it. Blair was the showman. Mandelson was the ideologue, along with his very close friend Gordon Brown, and. Yep. Right. This whole edifice could bring the whole of the New Labour project down. And let's remember that Call Me Dave Cameron, who incidentally, when he left power in whenever it was, he completely called it wrong on the Brexit referendum, 2015, wasn't it?
Brexit, yeah.
When he left power after the Brexit referendum, he went and worked for the Chinese Communist Party for 2 years. People forget that about Call Me Dave and the Tory Party, and his other dodgy sidekick that was bank robber Chancellor of the Exchequer, gorgeous George Osborne. So the whole project of this bland uni-party, we're all on the same page, globalist, World Economic Forum, Davos, Epstein Island, charade it's coming crumbling down,
It
brick
is, isn't
by
it?
brick by brick. And I think the Labour Party are finished. I think the Conservative Party, well, the Conservative Party are already dead. They just don't realise it yet. For one thing about, even though, as you know, I'm not a reform man and I don't support reform, but the one favour they've done is they've destroyed the Tory Party. The
Mm.
Tory Party. But having said that, I think Farage, because I think he's a snake, I think Farage is going to give the Tory Party the kiss of life. I think he's going to do some sort of deal and go, oh, we've got to bring the Tories in, because he wants to be a Tory. He wants to control the Tory Party. That's what Farage's game is.
Right, but before we get into that, we're getting into that. But Richard, you made a really fundamental point there, and that is that Mandelson has been at the heart, I would say, the black heart of Labour
The Prince of
since, since,
Darkness.
since the 90s, the 1990s. So we're talking decades. So
Decades.
for them to all suddenly turn around, and this is what sickened me, and say, "Oh, we had no idea. We had no idea. Peter was a bit like that." They all knew that, and I understand that in 2024, Peter Mandelson was actually helping select their candidates, which is another reason why there's been a silence. So I think they're all. You're right, Richard. The whole New Labour thing is just crashing.
And,
And
and Paul, it's like the grooming gangs, right? You know, people talk about the grooming gangs, they talk about the corruption, and they kind of forget about the survivors, right? There's a lot of people who are survivors of Epstein Island. Well, maybe there's not actually. Maybe a lot of them have been whacked. Maybe a lot of them have been taken out. That's the even scarier thing.
mm,
But I'm going to say something. I'm not going to make an accusation against Peter Mandelson, right? Because I don't know what he got up to. But I would imagine that people like him went to Epstein Island with one agenda: to engage in debauchery of whatever
yeah,
kind they
yeah,
wished to engage in.
yeah,
And that was the big ticket blackmail that Epstein had. That's how he got to control people. And there is a photograph. I don't know what age the young man is that's massaging Peter Mandelson's feet, but that picture's out there of
yeah,
Mandelson, and it's been on the front of all the newspapers. Mandelson giggling as a young man. Let's hope he was a young man.
yeah.
Is massaging his feet. So what sort of victims and survivors are there of Epstein and Mandelson and all the rest of these reprobates? How many people have been damaged by these scumbags? So let's get away from the political corruption. There's real victims, there's real survivors here.
Mm,
And so we've got to realise Epstein Island they weren't going there just for a bit of a loose party. They were going there and getting involved in, I'm not saying Mandelson did, but there were people going there getting involved in paedophilia of all sorts. With little boys, little
yeah.
girls.
Mm.
But that's a fact. That's a fact. But Epstein was convicted of it. So
But have you been surprised, Richard, at how we had the release of the 3 million Epstein files there just 2 weeks ago, and it has caused here in the UK a political earthquake. Like it definitely has, because
Yep.
Mandelson's been brought down, Morgan McSweeney's been brought down, and I don't know if you saw it just before we came on air. I was having a look at Wes Streeting, who wants to be the next prime minister. He's released his WhatsApp messages between him and Matt. I don't know if you had a chance to read them, but he's toast. He's toast now. There's no coming back from West Streeting.
Nope.
It was
Nope.
let's call it this way, very friendly with the Prince of Darkness, and what more need we say?
Well, I mean, he fits the demographic. That's
He
what I'm going
does.
to say. He
Yeah.
fits the demographic,
But he can't be leader now. So I think there's no chance of him. So the scary, scary bit is when we did touch on this, is it Angela Rayner who does seem to be positioning herself? I think rumor has it she set up a Angela for Leader website. Don't know if you saw that. Or could it be Mahmoud, who would appeal to the Muslim base that Labour have, Richard, as you know?
well, I would say there's a strong chance it's going to be Banana Mahmood, which, if that doesn't wake the British people up, nothing will, David. If that doesn't make the British people go, do you know what? We cannot put up with this. We need to do something radical politically. And I think there's only one option now for that.
Well, actually, Richard, that's a brilliant lead, and you're a star.
I'm
You
good.
gave me a perfect lead in there, because you know what you're saying, and of course I agree that Labour, whenever Labour go to the polls, and some people are saying, oh, Stormer threatened them today at Cabinet. If you don't support me, I'll call a general election, knowing that they'll be wiped out. But it doesn't matter if he calls it today or next week or next month. Whenever it's called, Labour are doomed. And if they have Shabana Mahmood, if they dared put her as PF, they'll be reduced a bit like the Tories, because you touched on the Tories as well. They'll be reduced to an ember, and you and I have a shared hatred of the Uni Party, and so I'd be happy with that. That would be would be a start. That would be a start.
It would be a start. Starting the grand project, a start. Yeah, and then we'd have to see because obviously, as it stands now, Advance UK would not. If there was an election next week, Advance UK would not be ready. Okay, so you're going to get hopefully a reform government, and when I say hopefully, I mean, my goodness, someone's going to clip that now, right? Because everyone knows I'm an Advance fanatic. Yeah. I don't want a reform government, but what I'm saying is, I think a reform government next week would be better than a Green government with Zach Polanski, right? But I want reform. I want all of them consigned to dust and ashes, and I want Advance to be the driving force with a massive majority in this country. That's my dream. And that could happen, because if Labour fall and there is a general election and Reform got in and they're found wanting, then where do people go? Well, we've got the answer.
Well, that leads us nicely into the topic. Now, I should say, and I did say this at the head of the show, that we had hoped to have yourself, Richard, and a couple of young Scottish Advance UK folks, one of whom sadly was very unwell and cannot do the show. And I've expressed privately and publicly, hopefully a full recovery. It's very sad news I got about him. But nonetheless, at the weekend on Saturday, we saw Advance UK's big kind of conference in London, and which were you at it, Richard?
Oh yeah.
Well, then I'm going to play. Let's just play for the folks watching this, just a very short clip of the moment where Ben Habib, leader of Advance UK, came on stage and received pretty thunderous welcome, actually. So if we can just get this played, Jed, just listen to this or watch.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, to deliver the first of our policies, please welcome party leader Ben Habib.
Right, that's enough. End applause. Yeah. That's enough. I don't want to hear any more. That's enough. Yes. Right. Okay. So I don't want to hear the speech because you were there and you can tell us all about it. It's better to hear from you. But
yeah.
First of all, I know the location, obviously, where it was. The venue looked absolutely packed. Richard, what was it like?
It was electrifying. I mean, David, you'd loved it because all our friends were there. Everybody we've known from this movement for the past 8-10 years was in that room. It was like a family reunion. And the thing about it is, everybody was on the same hymn sheet. There was such a sense of unity. You didn't go in that room and think, there's a few people here that maybe is going to heckle or aren't happy with what's happening in the party. Yeah. Everybody was electrified. And I've with Advance UK, as you know, I've been a member from the beginning, but there's times I thought, I'm not sure about this, not sure about that. I came away from that on Saturday buzzing with excitement and thinking, actually, this party is definitely the answer. I've always pushed it because I believe the policies are great and I know the direction they're going in. I know the people who are involved and I trust the people who are involved. But being in that room and hearing Ben speak, and Richard Thompson was the guy that was introducing Ben there, ex-Royal Marines Commando, superb guy. There's another guy, I apologise to him if he's watching, ex-paratrooper, para-engineer, who gave an amazing speech. Kathy Gingle was there. Leo Kursk was there. If I miss people out, I apologise. The bowler hat farmer was there. I mean, and every single person. Normally, when you hear speeches, David, you know this yourself, right? There's going to be like 10 people give a speech. and then there's going to be 2 or 3 that are pretty crap. Right? Yeah, it's just let's just get it right. We know it, we know it. And you're sitting there. Me and you do a bit of speaking. You're sitting there going, thinking, really? He got, you know what I mean? And I was sitting there, I was going, every single one of these, and I'm very critical of speeches. Every single one of those speeches that was made was absolutely on the money and absolutely nailed it. And they all built up until Ben came on. I mean, the standing ovations that people were getting, even before Ben came on, it was standing ovation after standing ovation. Everyone was hitting the nail on the head. The para guy said, look, if soldiers are going to be prosecuted, then it goes from the private to the corporal to the sergeant to the platoon commander to the major to the general to the defense secretary to the prime minister. Everybody in that chain gets prosecuted. So you never have this situation where soldiers are being thrown under the bus. Yeah. Brilliant speech. The bowler hat farmer, he was talking just about his background and working on the farm. And there was a very working class ethos there. And it wasn't forced, it wasn't put on. It wasn't, oh, my father was a tool maker from the billionaire prime minister. No, these were real people. Real people who cared about the country, and none of them were looking for power. None of them were looking for a position. None of them were saying, "Oh, I want to be an MP." Everyone was just saying, "We want to save our country." And I think Ben's an inspirational leader. I really do. And you know yourself, David. If you sent Ben a text after this show, he would get back to you. He wouldn't ignore if it was obviously he's sending him stupid stuff that's not relevant. He's probably going to ignore all of us. But if you're sending him stuff that's relevant, he's going to be in touch saying, "Yeah, that's a good point. Let's talk about that." Right? He's an inspirational leader. He is a brilliant communicator. He's a brilliant intellect, and he's got some brilliant intellects around him. I think David Rhodes is doing a fantastic job working on the policy, the college, and David, we've had these private discussions. I was skeptical about the college, right? I thought it's too cumbersome. How's it managed? But what they're actually pulling together in terms of policy. and that's what's important. That's what's important.
Right. Well, let's talk about that then.
And by the way, just I want to finish that point. I'm not skeptical about the college now. I get why they've done it. And again, who am I? The college is good. Is a good call.
Everyone has different skill sets.
Yeah.
But as you said, this was about policy. And I think the big thing that came out of Saturday was the immigration policy. Because, I mean, look, regardless of what some want to pretend, immigration is the number one issue in this country. British people have had, we've all more than enough sick of it, and we want it sorted. So I've had a chance to study the advanced UK policy, and actually I think I put a piece out on it in my Substack the other day comparing it to reforms, and to me it's a pure policy. It's muscular. It doesn't take any prisoners. It delivers, I think, what the majority of British people want. How do you feel about the advanced immigration policy, Richard?
I agree completely, David. I think even when you look at things like the green list, that is Reform aren't talking about a green list. No. Reform is still waffling on about net zero migration. So the green list basically says these are the countries that we're quite happy for and on the whole they're Anglophile countries that have not got. And let's just be honest, they haven't got Islamic terrorist problems. That's Pakistan ain't on it. Afghanistan's not on it. The green list is a clean list.
It's not. I'll argue with you now.
Oh, go on then.
The green list is very good, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
My only objection is the EU is on it.
Okay, that's actually a fair point. That's a fair point because then we're going to get all the 50 million Muslims coming from the EU across to the UK. Yeah. Unless I think one of the things that was very obvious about that, and if we can digress a little bit, because it is relevant to the point you just made. When we look at things like, and I know it was in culture, but you look at things like the burqa ban, you look at things like not allowing the repurposing of churches, you look at things about not, everybody that goes in Parliament, you're not allowed to swear on the Quran, you've got to swear on the Bible. Right. I don't know why halal wasn't in there, but that's, again, nothing's exactly perfect. No. But there was a lot of really good stuff in that culture document that is about reinforcing British Christian. And do you know the thing that really impressed me, David? Christianity was mentioned over and over and over again. And the Christian heritage of this country, the Christian,
Mm.
it was good.
Yeah, yeah. Well, then, I mean, the way I see it, having studied it, and I've compared it to reforms, and there's definitely difference between on immigration, the two parties' approaches. It seems to me that, and then I'll challenge you a bit in this one now, because I think that, from as I understand it, what Reform are wanting to do is Farage is leaving things out of his immigration because he wants to appeal to businesses, maybe conservative-owned businesses, basically giving them a bit of a sort of a wink and a nudge, saying, "Don't worry, you can still import your cheap workers," because he wants their votes. Whereas Advance is cleaning this one. There's nothing there. But people have said to me, and I saw someone comment earlier there as well on it, like what Advance is like ideal, but realistically, Reform is where it's at. So what do you say to that?
Well, I mean, the problem with that way of thinking is it's not even a question of ideals. What Ben said was, this is a state of emergency. This
Yeah.
isn't, this that if we want to look at, I mean, we could look at the reasons why we've got mass immigration. Obviously, abortion's probably the biggest reason we've got mass immigration, because if we keep killing our babies, then we're going to be in a situation where we
Mhm.
have to bring people in to
Yeah.
replace the baby. And that's not getting into the debate about the rights and wrongs of abortion. That's just a fact. It's a statistical demographic fact that birth control and abortion have stopped a lot of white English babies being born. So when people are trying
Oh
to
yeah.
blame, why is it? So, but put that to one side. The immigration policies that are purist, as people say, well, why would you go? Why would you go for something that's substandard? If what we know to be the problem is mass immigration, particularly from Muslim majority countries, I mean, I think that's pretty much what we're all
Yeah.
saying. That unless we want to become an Islamic state, that has to be put in reverse very, very quickly, and we need to get a grip of that. And to me, that's what Advance has done. Now, Nigel, if we're going to talk about reform, and it's all the thing is, all these things are connected. So the Islamic problem and the immigration problem are in, like they used to say about the IRA, Sinn Féin and the IRA, inextricably
Inextricably.
linked.
Yeah.
Mass
Yeah.
immigration and the Islamization of the UK are inextricably linked. They're
Yeah.
two sides of the same coin. So to get a grip of that, there need to be radical policies. There doesn't need to be any compromise, and it needs to be done really, really quickly. And that's why Ben's saying this will be basically a state of emergency on these issues. Now, again, the outworking of that, how that's done, because once you start cracking down in the way that Ben was talking about cracking down on criminals and illegals that have committed crime, people that have got the right to remain that have committed crime, that will cause massive, like we've been seeing in the United States of America. There will be probably an uprising from many people in those communities that are being affected by that, and they'll be crying to the lefties and the human rights people and all the rest of it. So now, have they got a plan for that? Well, time will tell. That's probably needs to be worked on, because that's a security policy. And I think Ben was saying, policies lead to other things. So if you have a policy on mass immigration, the police, there's not enough police officers to go and arrest everybody, cart
Yeah.
them off to the detention centre and lock them up. So then there's going to have to be this idea of the beefed up border force that they were talking about. I forget the name they had for it, but it's basically a border force on steroids. That's going to have an executive arm and a kind of arrest arm so that it can go in and grab people. So all of these things are problematic. None of this is easy. But the Second World War was problematic. And do you know what? The Second World War wasn't great for the British economy, but it was absolutely necessary.
No. The Second World War essentially destroyed Britain, even though
Exactly.
but that was for economic reasons and all the rest of it. But
Yeah.
then, can I ask you then, Richard, like in parallel to this big event that Advance had at the weekend,
Yeah.
Advance is also now featured on the political radar in the Gorton and Denton
Oh,
by-election.
hadn't noticed that. Right. Okay.
And we've got, obviously, we have our Nick Buckley,
Yeah.
who's been on this show with me.
Great guy.
Decent guy, local guy as well, and my
Yep.
dad, who's done an awful lot for the sort of Manchester broader community. That's where he's based. So Nick's throwing his hat in the ring as an Advance candidate, and then you've got Matt Goodwin, who's throwing his hat in as the Reform candidate, and then there's the others. There's the Green candidate. She's good. She's the one who she's right Manchester. She's right Manchester, working class, except she's totally not.
Exactly.
She's absolute lunatic. And Labour have got the Greek. Have you seen their candidate? She's Greek. And
Stelios. Hello, peeps.
Yeah. So how do you? Okay. So what do you think? What's going to happen? Do you?
Well, I mean, look. I think. I mean, when Nick stood, when obviously Ben had been talking to Nick and Nick decided to stand, and people say, "Oh, the Reform people. Oh, you're going to cost Reform the election." Well, do you know what? In a democracy, anybody can stand if they can pay a deposit and they don't have massive criminal record for being in prison for more than 3 years or whatever it is. You can stand to be an MP. You might lose your deposit, you might win. That's the way democracy works, supposedly, in the UK. So, first thing is, Advance have a right to stand a candidate, and they are a political party. That's kind of their job. If they didn't stand a candidate, I would have been very disappointed. Yeah. So, fair play to Nick for throwing his hat in the ring. But did you say polling has now come out about how well they're doing or badly? Is that what you were saying, that there's been polling?
I have said that polling suggests that Reform are in the lead, Greens are second, then down to the Labour in third in a Labour constituency, Tories fourth, and then so Advance don't. There's been no. I don't think the polling's picked up.
Okay. I mean, if it's a real long shot for Advance, okay, it's a massive long shot. But if Advance got 5% of the vote, 10% of the vote, that would be a political earthquake for a party that is less than 2 months old. The party was only registered officially in December. So we're in February now. So can you imagine if they got 10? I mean, if they won it, that would be like Roy of the Rovers stuff, wouldn't it? You know what I mean? It'd be like something out of a comic strip. But no, it's not going to happen. But we can dream. Who knows? I mean, anything can happen in an election, can't it? If as long. No, I'm not going to say about somebody's name being on the Epstein list, but you know what I mean. If somebody's name was found on the Epstein list, then maybe there'd be some hope. But the truth of the matter is, them standing shows intent, and it shows that they want to work out how this political game works. Because remember, most of the people in Advance, even in leadership, are not professional politicians, and that is not their weakness; that's their strength. So there's a bit of innocence, there's a bit of pioneer spirit, there's a bit of buccaneering going on.
Well, that's a real interesting point. So how do you feel about the fact that Nigel Farage is taking the opposite view to a significant degree? He thinks that he needs to have experienced political operators like Nawal,
Zahawi. Oh my goodness, and Nadine Dorris, the author of the Internet Harms legislation. Gosh. And Jake Net Zero Berry. I mean, you
couldn't make it up.
You couldn't make it up, and Jenrick, who decided to set the police on an innocent, peaceful protest in North Down. I mean, come on. I mean, like, these guys don't fill me with any hope. I would much rather have a guy that's been a businessman or like with Nick Buckby's case, has run a very successful charity, has been boots on the ground, working with people at the coalface. Yes, he might have radical ideas that people go, I'm not sure about that. But the bottom line is Nick is in it because he believes in it, right? Nick's not in this to make money. He even said if he wins, he's going to give half his salary away to a local charity that he knows need help. So you don't hear too many MP. And Nick's, I would imagine, Nick's not like Rupert. It's easy for Rupert Lowe to do that, right? Because Rupert's a very wealthy man, so he can give his salary away. It's not going to affect him one way or the other. But with Nick, I would imagine he's not a fantastically wealthy man. He's just one of us. He's one of the lads. He's one of the blokes. So I think Nick is, I'd love to see Nick do something amazing. But I would rather have a Nick Buckby than a Robert Jenrick any day of the week. Because do you know what? The British public are seeing through all these people now. They're looking at Jenrick, they're looking at Jake Berry, they're looking at Nadine Dorris, they're looking at that, the best of them probably is Andrea Jenkins. She seems like quite a genuine person. But they're looking at all these people and they're going, nah, that's not for us anymore.
Suella Braverman's pretty decent.
She is. I'm disappointed. That's why I'm disappointed in her. She's gone to that despicable snake oil salesman's party. Do you know what I mean?
Well, she has, and here's
I
a
know.
question. Here's an awkward question for you, right? Throw this wobbler at you. See if you can smack it away. So, our mutual friend Tommy
Yeah.
Robinson
Yeah.
has come out and supported Matt Goodwin. He's wishing Matt.
I can bat it away with one swing. He recanted of that when Nick threw his, because Tommy didn't know that Nick was gonna stand.
And I didn't.
Yeah. So once Nick stood, Nick said, "No, I support." Tommy said, "No, I support Advance UK. I trust the leadership. I trust Ben. I trust David Rhodes. I'm with Advance UK all the way." So he didn't recant his support for Matt. I mean, I think he thinks Matt Goodwin's a good guy. And look, the reality is, if Nick doesn't win it, if Nick Buckley doesn't win it, I want Reform to win it, right? Of course, even though I don't support them, and I think they are, well, not them. I think loads of my mates are in Reform, so it's not like I'm attacking the people Reform. I just know what Nigel is and the people around him. So
yeah.
Advance UK, it's a testing ground for them. If they do something amazing, great. If not, I'd like to see Reform get in.
And something I have to say again, just to harbour on the topic of Tommy Robinson for a second. I did see Tommy giving Matt Goodwin his, wishing him success at that point. And I saw then the Conservative turncoat Danny Kruger being interviewed. And he on BBC or somewhere like that, and he was we don't want anything to do, again, a repeat of 2024. We want nothing to do with that lot. And I thought, what a miserable, I'll not say what, Danny Kruger, who, by the way, has a sort of personality. He's the sort of guy who lights up a room by leaving it. That's how Danny Kruger lights up a room. And I thought that was such a miserable thing to say about Tommy Robinson. No matter what you think of Tommy Robinson, I thought at that point Tommy thought, well, here's an election, and there's a Reform guy for him. And okay, he's now saying tonight. But I thought I was so miserable of Kruger. And again, it raises questions about
character,
Reform, not Advance.
Look, the truth of the matter is, yes, we'd rather see Reform in power than Labour or the Greens, right? Okay, yeah. But the reality is, I want the best, and the best Advance for me, because it's like you say, it is pure. They are men and women of integrity. Is it perfect? No, there's no perfect political party. There's no perfect people. So there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be problems. But if what they're doing is driven by love of country rather than love of power, and what I see in Reform is something that could be an election winning machine, no doubt about it. But I don't see they're not driven by ideology. They're driven by a raw hunger and greed for power. That seems to be their driving force. We want to get into power. Jenrick, you can see it hanging out of him. And Jenrick couldn't lie straight in bed. He even lied at the first press conference he did. He lied to that reporter. Or did he lie? Or did he? Well, he's certainly very evasive about the truth. I think he did lie. But again, we could fact check me on that.
On the stream here, I think Lisa, one of your people over at your stream, has said, Reform. They didn't want Tommy Robinson, but they're happy with Bonnie Blue. And I saw that. Lisa, and
I mean, do you know what? That says everything you need to know about them, doesn't it? That says everything you need to know.
I'll tell you, Richard, because I'm keeping an eye on the clock here, but one of the things I think, and I wonder, do you agree with me that, I don't know none of us can predict, if you rightly observe what's going to happen down the road, because you can't. And Reform might do really well and all of that, and that's fine. But I think, and we had this discussion on a live show I did last week, that it is healthy for a democracy for people like Ben Habib and Advance, or indeed if Rupert Lowe wanted to throw his hat in the ring with the lot, to put different points of view, because their views are much more pure. Some might say more idealistic, but that puts a pressure point on Nigel Farage and his team, because they have to be aware of the fact that that was a decent crowd in that venue in London. And, you could see there is something there. And as somebody pointed out to me today online, was it when Reform went into the 2024 general election, they had 40,000 members. And now here we are, Advance are sitting with 40,000 members. So who knows? And isn't it healthy that we've got something like this?
It's great. It's great. It's great for democracy. And actually, I'll just correct you on that, David. Reform had 30,000 members when they went into the election, because that was the bar that Ben set when he launched Advance. He said, if we get to 30,000 members, I will register as a political party. And again, I call this one totally wrong. I was sitting there scratching my head going, Ben, come on, just register now. I mean, you don't have to wait till you get to 30,000. What's going on there? But he was right to do that, because what that did, that was his fleece. He was laying that fleece down and seeing what happened. And when it happened in record time, bang, he put the papers and got registered with the Electoral Commission. And in December, we officially became a political party. So we are only 2 months old officially as a political party. We've got 40,000 members. It's well financed. We've got a fantastic leader. We've got fantastic policies. What is there not to like? And my whole thing is, guys, okay, I get the Reform thing. I understand it. But, it's great to have Advance there, because they will call them to account. They'll hold Reform's feet to the fire. And
no, another question for you. So by breaking the duck and putting a candidate in the by-election this month, and then we've got all these elections, Richard, in Scotland and Wales in May. Do you think Advance will put any candidates up for those or not?
I don't know. I mean, initially, and again, what I've got to say, because I get myself in real trouble saying things, because I talk about Advance so much, people think I have influence. I have no influence with Advance. I just support the party. I am just a buckshy, to-before private soldier in the Advance army, right? I have no sway over anything. But I believe that they were kind of saying, well, we'll kind of wait until we get to general elections. That was the initial thought, I think, Dave. I don't know if you remember that. I think that was what was discussed. So again, if I'm wrong on this, guys, don't shoot the messenger. And so if that was the case, okay, I don't have a problem with that. But knowing, again, and I'm speculating, the way I see Ben and the passion that Ben's got, and the way he's, so enthused by what's happening, I think Ben might throw a few. I don't know. He might throw a few candidates in. Maybe who knows?
So I saw a comment from Charles Chevalier. He says, if Rupert throws his hat in with Advance UK, we'll see a massive pivot of support from Reform to Advance. Would you like to see that, or would you not? What's your thought?
I would have liked to see it. My gut tells me that Rupert's not going to do that. And my question is then, Ben publicly offered Rupert the leadership of Vance UK. He offered him it.
Yeah.
Less than a month ago. I think it was about 3 weeks ago now, right? Now, it's like I can see the tumbleweed, coming out of Rupert's office. No response, no acknowledgement. Rupert had his spies at the events, on Saturday. Now, you know what I'm like, David? That's why I'm not in leadership. It's why I'm only a member, because I can say what the hell I want. Well, I'll be honest with you. Rupert, I'm going to say something to Rupert Lowe. Rupert, if you set up your party and you set up a political party, you are not putting the best interests of this country in first place. You're putting your own ego in first place, because there's already a radical party on the right that is well structured, well funded, ready to go, that you could have been leader of. So why the hell would you go and set up a new party when Advance UK is already sitting there? And I think Rupert Lowe, if he does do that, I am going to go after him like a Rottweiler. I am going to savage him.
But he said that, to be fair to Rupert, I think he has said, for whatever reason, he doesn't think this is the moment for there to be.
If that's the case, great. If that's the case, great. But if my gut feeling says this, that Rupert's going to start a party as well, if he does do that, attack dogs like me will be at his heels, trying to tear the backside out of his pants at every single turn.
But hang on, if it's okay for Advance to set up and compete with Reform, why would it not be okay for Rupert to set up?
This isn't a moral issue, David. This is a totally partisan sectarian
Oh,
issue.
okay, yeah,
Listen. It's my gang. It's my gang, and I'm gonna savage anyone that's fighting against my gang, whether it's Reform or if Rupert sets something up. Look, I want Advance to win. We're in this to win. We're not in this to play games. I genuinely think Advance has got the radical answers that we need. Okay, so there doesn't need to be a third. What's Rupert going to say any different to what Ben's saying? The policies will have to be something similar. Now, and again, if we're going to talk, if there is a different doctrine, I spoke. I'm not going to name the gentleman, but I spoke to someone who's very close to Rupert Lowe on Saturday, and people could probably guess who it is. And I said, look, what we've got outside with the far left is identity politics. And this guy said to me, every party is based on identity politics, and I just let it go. But the reality is, Advance isn't based on identity politics, because Advance, if I might say it, is an old-fashioned, non-sectarian, non-racialized party. It's focusing on British values and British culture, whereas some of the people surrounding Rupert Lowe are ethno-nats. Now, as a Christian who believes the Bible, I can't be an ethno-nat. I can't do that because I believe it's absolutely against the teaching of Scripture. I am very much against the Islamization of the UK. I'm very much. I've got a very deep knowledge, I believe, of Islam, and I know what Islam's all about. So I cannot look at somebody because they've got a darker skin pigmentation than me and say, well, they're not welcome in our country. So, and that's the fear I have, that the reason that Rupert and the lads that are wrapped round him, and I'm not going to name them, I've named them on my own channels, I'm not going to name them on your channel. Those young fellas have ethno-nat leanings to be very generous to them. And I think that's why they're not joining Advance UK, David, to be honest with you.
Well, Richard, I see someone called Lee has said Richard Inman for PM. So, given that Stormer might be vacating that position imminently, Richard, maybe the next time we talk, you'll be in Downing Street.
Well, do you know what I'll do? I'll do it part-time between all the other stuff I'm doing. I think I could do about 10 minutes a day and do a better job than those clampets. So thanks very much for that, Lee. 10 minutes a day, I reckon we could do a better job than Calamity Keir and Banana Mahmood and Idi Amin's, offspring.
Well, the thing is, just to wrap it up, I mean, my feeling is that throwing more good stuff into the political arena, which is what happened on Saturday, is a definite plus. And therefore, I mean, on these matters, I'm a wee bit agnostic when it comes to political parties. I prefer to just do my own thing, but I think it's healthy. And having seen it, and I completely echo what you said, Richard, the people in the
college.
The college, who you and I have talked about, and I think some of them may be watching this, have done a very good job. It was a comprehensive policy.
I'm very impressed. I'm very impressed.
And the things that you said earlier, again, echo pro-Christian. That's good. That's a big, very important, actually fundamentally important, as is all the other stuff. There's no real compromise going on there. Now, whether that's politically as sellable as others is for electorate to decide, but I thought it was very good. So I see the comments coming in here. Obviously, there's a lot of Advance supporters on that. By the way, I'd be very happy to interview anybody from Reform as well. If you want to come on with me, do let me know, because I'll treat you all the same, and you're entitled to put your points of view. But I think, Richard, it's more important to give guys like you, and I wish the other couple of guys could have been able to make it, apart from health problems, because these views are not put out as much. You're not getting someone. Ben's not sitting on GB News, is he now?
No.
Or Talk TV.
Well, he's on Talk. He's back on Talk. He's back on Talk. Yeah. He's back on Talk. And I mean, I think GB News is shameful that they're not having him on. It's purely partisan politics again. But look, at the end of the day, they've got their agenda. I'm not going to have too many Reform people on my channel, and I'm not going to have too many of Rupert Lowe's people on my channel either. I am dyed in the wool Advance UK. Now, I know my enemies will clip those little clips where I said, well, I want Reform to win, totally out of context, and make it look like I want a Reform government. No, I want an Advance government. But the point is, if it's between Labour, the Greens and Reform, I'm always going to say, well, look, let's get somebody on the right to try and change things a bit. But I want a massive majority Advance UK government in 2029. That's what I want.
Well, as I say, Richard, a week's a long time in politics, and 3 years is a heck of a long time. It looks like as we finish tonight, we're not going to have the same Prime Minister that we had in July of 2024, potentially by the
Oh,
end of the week. I mean, I keep saying this line, I've got a prawn sandwich in the fridge. Will it last longer than Keir Starmer? I think I've put the money on my prawn sandwich because I think he's doomed. So we've chatted about that one tonight. I wanted to give a big shout out to my many Iranian friends because I consistently speak out for them, given the incredible
good job.
persecution of mullahs. And thank you guys. I see all your kind comments there to me, and we'll keep doing that as well. And as always, Richard, thanks for coming on. You're a breath of fresh air. And I hope you've not been overly exhausted yourself by doing these live streams tonight.
No, I'm raring to go. I could probably do another 3 before midnight, you know.
Richard, force of nature. Listen, Richard, my friend, great to see you as always. And thanks so much for being here. Thanks to all of those of you in all the different streams. Appreciate you wherever you are. Thanks for being with us this evening. And we will return for our live show on Thursday night. And in the meantime, check me out in Substack and all the rest of the stuff. And speak then. But from Richard and myself for tonight, it's good night.
Good night. And join Advance UK.